sharing my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, it's there.
Brilliant. Okay. And I was just going to say, Nick, what a great presentation. I learned loads. I think a lot of that's relevant to where I'm going with this. So I've been a general counsel for National Grid for some time. I've also played in the legal operations space. Having done a master's in lean, I thought I'd share some of the findings from a master's degree, which I think is relevant for legal departments. I've taken some of the theory and then applied it within our organization. So I just thought I'd share some of the value that I've got from the world of lean and systems thinking and how it impacts on operations. So the title is Redesigning the Legal Function Using Systems Thinking and Legal Operations. And I know Nick touched on that, so I'm gonna go into the general piece. So the legal department, over time, if you look back in history, has organically grown. We were there to mitigate the risk. As time went on, different people had different expectations of us. The board want us to be the honest broker. They want to make sure that we look after the compliance piece, the safety piece, all the things that from a corporate governance perspective need to be looked after, that is given to the GC. The business itself, look at it as a cost center and say, demonstrate your value. They want us to be active in taking up initiatives, demonstrating real value in commercial transactions. And our teams that have grown over time are now saying, we're not here just to be pushed around and given loads of work. So for the journey for legal, we find ourselves at a crossroads where more for less is and austerity is the norm. Our people are expected to be jack of all trades, be everything to everyone, but there's a skills shortage. We've got big complex supply chains, and demand is always outstripping capacity. We heard from Nicholas around the process and the tech piece and the data piece. We're quite nascent in our processes and in our technology journey. We've had some really good attempts at buying legal technology, be it automation, be it matter management, be it the e-billing platforms that exist, and they've gone well for some organizations, and other organizations have started and the whole thing stopped. So legal technology is offering us a really better way of doing things, but we're struggling to kind of get that adoption across the organization. We've got some real issues with our supply chain. So there's poor buying behavior on our part because we don't have the skill set to be an active procurement buyer. Our law firms are being charged by a certain model and motivated by that model, and therefore as a result of that there's some poor selling practices. So the failure with processes, technology, data, overworked teams, no clear purpose of the function, kind of all lends itself to value erosion and real issues. So the premise that I want to talk us through is this thing called systems thinking and legal operations. So if I touch on systems thinking first, systems thinking is looking at the legal function from an end-to-end perspective. So what's the input, what's the output, what are the levers that we can play with? You need to consider each of those levers in tandem with the other lever or the input or the output. Sometimes we'll go and buy a big piece of technology, but then we don't understand the consequences that it has on the people, the processes, the data, the expectations of the department. Other times we'll write a really good strategy, and that strategy sits in a drawer and it never gets uploaded somewhere or dealt with in an effective way. So systems thinking is about looking at the whole process from an end-to-end perspective. Edward Deming, the father of quality, says, you know, we spend most of our time looking at the people issues. And we look at most of our time spending the people issues, but actually, in fact, 85% of the issues stem from the process, the system. So therefore, a failure for us to kind of concentrate on the system means that we end up kind of just managing our people, managing the interactions with people, and not actually looking at how it's impacting on the system. So I want to just talk you through what a typical system in legal will look like and some of the levers that you can play with. The next piece, which Nicholas talked about, is legal operations, and you'll hear a lot about this. The trend in the UK, Europe, and America particularly has been that legal operations is now kind of an active function for the internal legal department, but also for law firms. So all of the large law firms are now building capability in this space to be able to respond to people like me who are legal operations managers for their organizations. And legal operations, in put simply, is doing everything other than giving legal advice. So that's the strategy of the function. That's kind of the plan, the managing of the plan. That's looking after the people issues, the development, the growth, the well-being, the training, the technology that you're buying, acquiring, looking at what's going on within the organization, and also looking outside for best practice, all of your key processes and how they interact with the business. And it is also about optimizing the legal advice, because ultimately legal operations are there to make sure that the advice that's been expected of us is being delivered on time. So the business of law and the law of law needs to be split. Legal operations need to be picked up by someone within the function, and key things like strategy, plan, people, technology, processes need to have a real home, need to have a real plan to make that happen, and understand how they touch on the system. So a typical system in legal looks like this in my eyes. So the purpose is the output. So what is the business expecting of us? What does a tangible value adding legal function need to look like? So you need to first be clear about the purpose of the legal department. We are an add-on for the business. The business's vision, mission is our mission. We should be there to make sure that that mission and vision is delivered on time, but we need to have a purpose. So we need to go out to the business and be clear about what they expect of us. I've done some work with different organizations who then do like a big stakeholder analysis, work out who are the key stakeholders that have an influence over the function, and then build their purpose on the back of that. So if you're clear what the legal department needs to stand for, you need to be clear about what a tangible output as a good result will look like for your key stakeholders, you can then start building the system. So know your outputs, then look at your inputs. So what are the inputs in a typical legal department? The total legal cost that you've got to spend. So you've got a pot of money that you can spend, and that could be in-source or outsource. So being clear about what does the total legal costs for legal constitute. In organizations that I've worked with, they're not clear because the different parts of the business are outsourcing. Procurement holds this. There is no data to kind of validate that. So be clear about your total legal costs. You can ask the law firms that you send work to give you a narrative of what you spent with them in the last year. You can also look at your ERP systems and understand what's going out from the law firm's list perspective, and come up with a total legal cost, because you need to know that, because that's the number that you need to either improve or work with to change the way your system's going to work. Another key input is the risk appetite of the organization. The greater the risk appetite, the strength, the more stringent it is, the more the legal department will have to work and review things. So be clear about the risk appetite of the organization. And then from that, work out what you need to do and how you kind of build your team to kind of reflect that. And then the final one is, being clear about the demand coming into the legal department. We often don't kind of control the demand. We look at and attend meetings and pick up anything and everything. If you're very clear about your purpose and you're very clear about what the business thinks is going to add value, you are actually going to be able to kind of manage that demand piece properly. So knowing your outputs and knowing your inputs, you now have some levers to play with. And some of the levers on a typical system are capacity management. So how are you going to release the valves in that system to give you the purpose with the total legal cost that you've got and the demand that you've got? There's a whole lot of work that goes behind that, and there's a whole lot of learning behind that. But you need to be able to put your team on the value pyramid. All the repeatable work sits at the bottom of the value pyramid. Further up, all the more bet your farm type work and more interesting and complex work sits on that. You need to look at the capacity that you've got. Where are they sitting on the value pyramid? How does that link with your purpose? So capacity management, again, there's a whole piece of work that can be done in looking at that against the purpose, against the value pyramid, against the inputs that you've got available. And the next piece is all around performance management. And I've got a slide at the end which talks through performance management of a supply chain. Like I said, there's poor buying behaviors. We haven't been trained to do really active procurement management of our supply chains. So the performance management of our internal team, our external team, it is really key, and a GC and the legal ops person needs to be all over this, because there's a lot of value that gets eroded. A failure to manage the performance of your supply chain will mean that you'll get cost overruns, you'll get bills coming in the years that you haven't got budgets for. You have a number of other issues. So performance management, another lever, a number of tools that sit behind that to improve your performance of the function. And then the last one is the continuous improvement piece. So we need to be making sure that as we manage our function or our system, that we are constantly improving the way that that system's working. So things like your annual feedback, things like your business partner meetings, request on continuous improvement issues that exist within the relationship, or any data sets that you've got, will help you design and build projects. I have, under continuous improvement, a number of aspects, but essentially this is where all of your processes, your technology, your data, and the improvements that are required to make that happen sit. So stepping back from this, at a very high level, a system needs to have its inputs, its outputs, its levers, and then there needs to be an element of measurement. So how do you measure the system to make sure that you are then improving the system constantly? So the first piece around inputs, you need to do a pestle analysis of what the legal department is going through today and what it might be going through in the future. And then you need to do a similar pestle analysis of your organization and its competitors. A pestle analysis looks at the political, environmental, social, technological, legal, and environmental issues that sit and affect that organization. So doing a pestle analysis will allow you to be very clear about your organization's journey and its current status. And that's how you would measure some of the inputs on the legal department. In terms of capacity, the obvious ones are listed. You want to know demand versus capacity so you can demonstrate value. You need to know that all of your key departments are asking for the legal department's help and are utilizing legal department. If you've got a rogue legal department that's not coming anywhere near legal, there may be some issues in there from a risk perspective, and you need to understand the utilization. Available capacity, internal and external workload is all under the capacity management piece. Under performance management, you want to look at things like the full spend, cost of the services, what value the law firms are giving you. Under the improvement piece, we've got a fair few things under there, but you've got all the erroneous work, rework that goes on, the feedback that you get from the business, the value that you're adding, and the customer satisfaction piece. So to try and summarize a half a day's training session in 10 minutes, if you look at legal operations and you look at systems thinking, you can effectively build a legal function that's purposeful in delivering what the organization wants. Here's a balanced scorecard. Like I was saying, under performance management, it's very hard for us with our skill sets to be able to pull together some of the key metrics and the data, because we've got legacy systems and we haven't got some of the supply chain playing with us as well. And you've got some poor buying behaviors when you can't control who spends what. But on this balanced panel firm balanced scorecard, you've got some key bits of information that I just want to quickly run through. So you want to know what you're spending with all of your supply chain. Supply chains that are you're giving a lot of work to, you want them to give you the value add that's on the left-hand side. This is where you take the spend, you see what value they give you, and then you divide that between each other, and then you get a percentage. And what I like to do is I like to rank my law firm, so then I can have a more proactive conversation about, I spend this with you, you give me this value, you're number 6 on the ranking. There's 5 other firms better than you who could be giving, 5 other firms better in the value add piece who are giving me more. You need to work with me to work out what I can have more off you because you're delivering this for other clients. Invoice compliance, again, law firms fail to understand how hard it is for an internal function to run their their spend and their budgets, and a law firm that you've explained and given a billing guideline to, and kind of got up to speed on how your processes work. A law firm that fails to kind of adhere to those, that law firm's not a true partner. So understanding invoice compliance, understanding some of the issues that exist in that space will really help you have more detailed and informed conversations with them. Utilization, I'm interested in making sure that my work is done at the right level, using the right AFA at the right cost. So utilization helps me understand that actually work is being regionalized, work is being done at the right level, and that I'm not getting partners working on repeatable property transactions that they shouldn't be doing. So here I investigate the work that they're getting, the type of work that they're getting, has it been disaggregated, and what's the value that's coming from it, because I want to share this with my business. And then the other two bits are diversity statistics. I want to make sure that that I've got a diverse portfolio of people working on my matters, an organization that has a diverse workforce and then keeps losing them. There's going to be some issues that I want to understand and explore. And then on the left-hand side, Nicholas will recognize that's from one of their Thomson Reuters system. That's the feedback that comes in from Legal Tracker. I'm interested in understanding what my business is thinking of my law firms, so I can have a conversation. So I take this data and then I create an overall ranking. And then next to that is a net promoter score and the improvement plan that exists. So in a very quick 10 minutes, I've just talked you through the role of the legal department has changed. We need to build a purposeful legal function. You can't build a purposeful legal function unless you understand the whole system and how the system interacts. What are the processes? What's the data that you want to be collecting? And what is it that the business want from you? So linking all of those things together, you will get a legal operations function, a business of, which is a business of law function, a law of law function, and you will have it very clear on the systems lens. So that was me. And I'll hand over to you, Natasha, again for any questions, if that's all right.
Yep, thank you, Mo. I'm just a little bit wary on time, so I'll answer a few questions. Again, the rest of the questions will be answered on our website. So this is one from George. So he says, "Hi, Mo, please advise." Oh, hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Okay, sorry. Please advise. How are small legal departments overcoming their legal operations challenges?
So small legal departments, and there's some theory around you should have a small legal function, but you should always think about the business of law. So I believe that the GC is picking up quite a lot of the slack in terms of the law of law and the business of law. And actually some of the small legal departments are now outsourcing to consultants who can come in and do some of this work, hand it back to their small team to run as a business as usual piece. So Natasha, I think legal operations is an issue for everyone because there's a big supply chain, a big value piece that needs to be grappled and dealt with.
Perfect. Just one more quick question before we move on to Alice. So how much of legal operations is driven by technology versus people?
So if you look at this from a kind of a big picture perspective, I would say that people, process, technology, data are the core, parameters of legal operations. Technology you can go and buy, and if you just buy a piece of technology and don't understand the impact on people, process, and the data piece, you're just going to have a product that does what it should be doing. That product could be really optimized if you understood the bigger picture. So I think technology is absolutely a tool, but it's not the tool that I would use. I think a lot of departments are today broken because they don't understand their system and they don't understand their processes. And there's a lot more value before you go anywhere near technology.